Commissioner.
o'clock, so we'll call the Facilities Committee meeting for Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 to order. I'll lead us in an invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and Father, we just pray that you'd heal our country and just be with our community this week and next week and the following weeks, and just help us to show love to others and care for others. Thanks for the opportunity we have to work with the JWSC. Thank you for our staff, and just help us to be good stewards of the funds that our customers provide us to improve the system. Help us to glorify you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. There's no public comment period, so we'll move to the approval section. First item is minutes from the October 20th, 2021 Facilities Committee meeting.
I'll make a motion that the minutes as presented be accepted as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Item 2 is the ARCO Area Water and Sewer Extension Contract Award. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. The ARCO neighborhood of Glynn County is just outside the city limits, and a lot of those customers have access to water, but none of them have access to sewer. We had engineering design completed by Thomas & Hutton Engineering for 11,300 feet of 8-inch sewer and just over 3,100 feet of 10-inch sewer, as well as just shy of a mile of water line in there. Went out for bid September the 24th and received bids Monday, October 18th. Yes. Pre-bid was Monday, October 18th, and the bids were received Thursday, October 28th. We had 2 bidders. The low bidder was UWS Inc. at $3,655,749.60. We had not previously worked with this contractor, but we have checked references, and they will be subbing some of this work out to a contractor we have done extensive work for, and we feel comfortable moving forward with this contract. It's also recommended by our engineer of record, Thomas & Hutton. It's a 240-day contract time. Given the difficulties getting pipe right now, we will likely have a notice to proceed be slid out to allow for the pipe delivery dates, because right now they may not get pipe for 12 weeks if we started it. So probably we'll set the notice to proceed date for when pipe is showing up. There is a bid tab attached provided by our engineer of record.
Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion that the Facilities Committee recommend to the full commission award a contract for the construction of the ARCO area water and sewer extensions to UWS Inc. in the amount of $3,655,749.60.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and second. Any questions?
I was just kind of surprised by the disparity in the 2 bids. Is there?
Well, the higher bidder indicated that their cost had went up through this supply chain issue, but the original estimate for the project was $3.5 million, so the $3.6 million is in line with what we expected given the long-term estimate.
The first item on the list, the mobilization and demobilization, it's $54,000 versus $490,000. I mean, that's just beyond.
There was quite a spread, yes.
Is that other company?
The other company has done work for us in the past, a couple of jobs, but it's been several years now since they've had any work with us. They bid a lot of our work, and traditionally they have been on the higher side when we've received bids.
Will they continue that trend, I see? That's the only question I had.
I have a question. And in the future, can we have the engineering and have the total project cost on the project? Total breakdown of the whole cost, including the engineering design
Yes, sir.
and construction administration and everything, so we know what it is.
Yes, sir.
Because on the bond issue, if we had $3.5 million, was that just for construction or was that?
That was just for
engineering?
construction. The engineering's being funded out of the R&R reserve.
Okay. Now, this was gonna be a SPLOST project, but we're actually, Andrew's proposing to fund it out of R&R reserve, right, Andrew?
It's the capital reserve. If you recall, we have 3 separate project reserves. The capital reserve, we transfer $300,000 a year into to 4 projects, and it hasn't been touched for several years. So we have adequate funding in the capital reserve to cover the overall majority of this, and then the amount over $3.5 million, so the $155,000 would be coming from the Series 2021 bond issuance.
Is there any benefit to use the bond issue funds for this rather than the R&R reserve?
The main issue with the bond issuance funds, of course, is those monies were budgeted based off the SPLOST estimates, and now things are costing a lot more. So if you do this project and then the Dunbar project, which we awarded the design build on last month, and those both come in high, especially Dunbar, if it comes in $1 million or $2 million higher than what we expected when we started the project because of the way things are going, you would be getting less work done with the bond money than what we originally projected.
There's no particular advantage of using one reserve
No.
versus another.
There's not.
So I would just suggest that it gives us some flexibility to, with the recommendation that you have, using the funding sources as outlined.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is AMI meter replacement project change order number 1. Mr. Burrs.
I'm going to turn this one over to Ms. LaDonna.
Thank you, Mr. Burrows. Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, you may recall in July of last year, we awarded a contract for a meter data management system and automated metering infrastructure for a full meter change out throughout our system to Delta Municipal Supply Company. Within that contract, there were 2 aspects. There was a fixed price portion and there was a not to exceed portion. The fixed price portion was based on the meter itself and the installation of that meter. The not to exceed portion was based on some unknowns as far as quantities that were needed for additional pieces of that installation. Those being, for example, curb stops, backflows, new meter boxes, landscaping issues, and what I'll call some non-traditional installations. To give you an idea of what a non-traditional installation is, got some photos here to show you. These are referred to as yoke bars or yoke setters. There's actually a meter in the middle of that picture, if you can imagine. A little bit closer look here. That's actually the meter in the middle of that, almost looks like a vise of some kind. The intent of those yoke bars when they were first used was to stabilize that meter across the installation in order for the pipes in the meter to be in a nice line to minimize the leaks associated with those. And it was a great usage at the time, but as you see over time, in a system like ours where we drive by and gather the readings, there's very little reason for us to actually go to the meter. So over time, the meter and the yoke bar really become one unit. So in trying to do change outs of installations where those yoke bars exist, there's so much damage done to the rest of the infrastructure that's in that box that it's not just simply pulling a meter and installing a new meter. So as our crews were encountering these, they were realizing that the estimates that we made for the number of these yoke bars and these non-traditional installations that we had in our system, the estimates that we made were considerably lower than the actual field verification that they were seeing as they were out there. Although we had asked all of our bidders to include a schedule of pricing so we would have a consistent basis for determining the successful bidder. The fact that we didn't have a full system audit of what the needs were throughout the system caused an overrun in the project. So what we did was, instead of continuing with these installations, we said, let's stop. Let's get a full system audit. Let's redirect our resources so we know exactly what we're up against as far as our finances are concerned and as far as our field resources are concerned. So we did that. Our project partners worked with us to redirect those resources, and we're certainly thankful to them that they were willing to do that for us. We now have a more complete overall picture of what's going on with our system. May through October of this year was when we went out and we gathered that information. And in the read-ahead packet that you have there, you have just a couple of pages of that data. I didn't want to overwhelm you with all 388 pages of it, but just to give you a sample of the type of data that was gathered, you'll see there what the needs are based on all of those addresses. And yes, we went to every remaining address that's still in our system that needs an installation, determined what materials were needed, what labor was needed, and came to some calculations. And you'll see those calculations on a quote that's also attached with your read-ahead packet there. Realizing when you see that value, it's a fairly staggering number, and I recognize that. And being mindful of the funds that are entrusted to us by our ratepayers, as our chairman noted in his invocation this morning, we wanted to make sure that we did have a complete picture, and that was the reason that we went ahead and redirected the resources, suspended the installations. And we believe now that we have this information, not only can we expedite the field's work, we can address things like these supply chain issues and these pricing uncertainties that we're encountering, because now that we know what our needs are through the rest of the project, we can put in placeholder orders for all of these materials and supplies. We know now what the labor is that's going to be required for these. So we believe that this was the best approach to go ahead and get this audit completed, see what the overall impact was, and to request the amount of that impact. In the package that you have, I would request a minor revision to the recommended motion. I do want to clarify that this is a not to exceed amount. We are not automatically awarding another $3.2 million in change for this contract. It is a not to exceed amount allowance. So I wanted to make that clarification. But with that, I'll be happy to address any questions.
By lumping these together, we'll get a better unit rate because they're going to do them all at one time, correct?
All at one time, yes, sir. Consistent work all the way through, and it also expedites the overall project.
I'll offer the motion so we can go into discussion. I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend to the full commission approve change order number 1 in the amount of $3,287,712.60 to Delta Municipal Supply Company's AMI meter replacement contract.
Can we modify that to say change order number 1 in the not to exceed amount
Thank you.
allowance of $3,287,712?
Yes, sir, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yes. So we've gone through and done an audit of the detailed materials that would probably be needed at each location. In looking at the material descriptions, should I presume that this aligns with our current standard?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay. And then another question would be, is our standard industry typical, or do we exceed the industry typical standard for these types of installations?
If I may, because our Director of Engineering is working on our standards at this moment, Mr. Klein, do you mind speaking to where this is in comparison to other organizations' standards?
I would say we definitely meet all AWWA specifications and standards that way, all state specifications. I'm not sure if we would be considered exceeding industry standards, but we can certainly look and see how we compare that.
Yeah, my question would be is that, is this a betterment to the system?
Yes.
And if
From
it
where
is,
we are now? Yes, sir.
understand that it's, let me get through this.
Please.
Is our standard better than the industry typical standard, and if it is, why? I would not want to make that kind of investment unless we could justify why our standard might exceed the national standard, or AWWA, okay? Recognizing fully that as we continue on this project, yes, it will be betterment to our system, obviously, because the corrosion based on the age of the equipment, got that. No issues there. I just want to be sure, have some level of confidence that we aren't using this to exceed something because it's be nice to, versus this is a requirement based on our standard, and our standard is consistent with AWWA.
Thank you for the clarification, and I'll answer simply, it's the latter.
Yeah, the main thing here, a lot of this, there's a 1-inch curb stop, of course, is 1.5 million of the change order, and then the 3/4 inch back is 1.1 million of that. So you've got 2.6 million just in those two items. The
Right.
curb stop, of course, being required to shut the meter off if there is a leak. And then the main benefit to our system is the majority of our residential meters currently don't have a backflow preventer. So a large portion of this money would be going to actually protect the system from any sort of back pressure or anything like that that may occur.
So,
And that is a standard install now across.
understood. So when we first scoped the meter replacement project, was it our intent at that time to upgrade
Yes,
to the double check valve, or in case some places we didn't have any check valve?
Yes, sir. The backflow preventer was included across the board. We wanted to make sure that every installation had a backflow preventer with it.
Okay. All right. I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
Can I ask, what's the average lifespan of one of these meters?
The ones that you see there have been in the ground for 15 years,
Okay, so since 2006?
6 or so, yes,
And
sir.
the new meters are going in, have a 13-year full warranty and a 7-year prorated warranty.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification.
So they're at least partially warranting their new meters for 20 years after installation.
So then the industry standards in 2006 were probably not anywhere close to what they are
Right.
now. So what we're doing is we're protecting our system, making sure that we meet or exceed any of the current standards. And so I think it's a good investment myself.
Thank you.
One follow-on question. Is there any maintenance that we should have, or do we have, to extend the life of the yoke materials? Or is that even practical given the cost of the materials amortized over the full life?
I think from a maintenance perspective, anytime you have a valve of any sort that doesn't get used, it's going to seize up.
Right.
However, operating 30,000 valves with regularity that would be cutting people's water off is probably going to, we'll get a lot of backlash over that procedure. Now, unfortunately, we do have some customers who get their valves operated with regularity, but that is not the standard procedure.
Well, in
Some
terms
of the bigger valves on the larger meters, we absolutely need to be operating those more frequently.
Right. And then just the materials themselves, are they, is the alloy a better mix than it was 20 years ago when some of these were installed, such that they might exceed the life of the meter that we're installing, or
Very possible.
not? The other is, where we put these in a new box, do we need to do anything to that such that we reduce the propensity for it to become so oxidized?
Sure.
We put gravel in the hole, or is it suspended in the hole, such that it's not covered in dirt all the time? Just some thoughts there.
Those are great ideas. I know the typical install, it is suspended, but over time, rainfall kind of washes silt in the box. And, a lot of us has probably been to our own meters and looked in, had to dig out dirt around the meter to get to it. So,
And to your
That's certainly
point,
a
one of the things that we are doing for our 1-inch and smaller meters is we're using stainless steel couplings and parts and pieces in between the meters. So that will obviously prolong over a standard install. So
I think so,
Yes, sir.
given the premium of stainless. Okay.
Understood.
Todd, you can show us some pictures in the next facilities meeting about
We can.
what the finished meter looks like and everything, the
Absolutely.
installation.
Be happy to do that, yes, sir.
I've got several questions. First off, are they gonna be putting some yoke, are they replacing the yoke bars, or are we
No,
just
sir. We are
eliminating?
completely removing the yoke bar installations from our system. We won't have this type of setup in any of our system anywhere once we're completed.
And what about the service lines? Are we just connecting to the service line right where it is, and we're not even looking at the condition of the service line?
We are looking at the
Our
condition.
side of the meter.
Yeah, we are looking at the condition of the service line on the utility side. If there is an issue on the customer side, obviously if it's something that we've caused during the installation, we will make that repair while we're there. Otherwise, it's something that we are notifying the customer of the condition of that line so they can address that.
As far as issues on our side, when the contractor goes through and installs the meter, if he notices any public side service issue, we get a work order, and then our distribution crews go out and we'll take care of that.
That's right.
Okay. Are some of them galvanized services?
Yes, and if they notify us of a galvanized service, it's going on the list to get replaced.
sir.
And what about if it's a long side service?
Then we can bore under a 2-lane road.
Are we doing that on all of this project?
We're not replacing the services as part of this
I
project.
know,
no, sir.
but the ones that need to be replaced, we're replacing?
Not out of this project money, but it's coming out of the galvanized project money.
Okay. Okay, what was the original GFA loan amount?
The first GFA loan was $7.5 million,
And what's the interest rate?
0.07%.
And what's the contractor's contract amount, Delta Municipal Supply?
14 million.
14 million and change. I want to say 14,085, I believe is the total.
14,085,
I
and we're
believe.
adding 3 million to it.
Yes, sir.
That
And
means it's
I-
17,4 or something.
Right, that's correct.
If I may anticipate your question, I also wanted to mention, I had talked about addressing pricing uncertainties. We have already been informed by our project partners that the pricing that they had originally quoted us is only good through the end of this calendar year. And as a matter of fact, there are some factory shutdowns that the meter people will have starting in December. So they want orders by November 30th. Past that timeline, we already know that there will be an 18% increase the first of next calendar year. And there's more, but wait, there's more. That pricing increase will only hold until the end of March of 2022. And at that particular time, they're considering another pricing increase. So again, this allows us to proactively address those if we can go ahead and get this entire order placed based on this new pricing.
So in summary, they're buying all the meters now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so what's going to be our additional loan amount that we're going to apply for at GFA?
Roughly 10 million. There'll be a little bit give or take on that, but roughly $10 million. And then I also, no guarantees, but I did apply for the $10 million through the ARPA, CARES Act ARPA funding grant portal as well. I mean, no guarantees with that whatsoever, but
Okay,
we should know that by the end of the year.
Original GFA loan is how much?
7.5.
So then it's going to be 17.5 million total.
Yes, sir.
And what's the interest rate on the 7.5?
0.07%.
Do we anticipate it's going to be the same thing for this one?
Rates have not changed since last year.
Not.
Have not changed.
Not.
They might soon, though.
They might soon.
That's right. And that second application would be in January for their May board meeting. So January of 2022.
We've already got a pre-application
That's correct.
filed with them.
We just need to make sure that that we need to follow up and replace these service lines just as quick as we can. We just
Understood.
make sure, because we don't want to put in new meters and all of a sudden find out we got 2,000 service lines we got to replace.
Yes, sir.
Noted.
Are there any other questions?
I think this is a necessary investment in protecting our utility and providing what customers need, which is an up-to-date meter and it's accurate. And so I think I'm very much in favor of doing this. It's an investment in our infrastructure.
Well, I want to commend Ms. Roberts and also Andrew on working this out and everything, because it's been going on now for several months in working with this change order. Any other questions?
And Mr. Chairman, if I may dovetail onto that as well, I briefly mentioned in my remarks about the contractor working with us. Certainly them doing audits is a lot less of a financial inflow for them at that particular time, but they were willing to make that adjustment over that several month period in order to help us accomplish this goal. So I certainly want to recognize Delta, Neptune, and M&E Construction for the fact that they were so willing to work with us and accomplish this goal that's certainly beneficial for all of us.
Any other questions?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Just
Chairman.
one comment. You mentioned that we were notifying our customers if they haven't had an issue on their side of the service.
Yes, sir.
Would that be something that we would catalog in the GIS system? In our
Yes.
asset?
Funnily enough, we had a long conversation about this the other day because there's new standards coming out for, on the lead and copper rule, that if somebody has a galvanized service on their side, we will be required to notify them on at least 3 occasions that we can't make them replace it, but you've been notified.
Right.
So we actually had a conversation the other day about recording that in GIS so we have those locations identified.
Yeah, and I would think that would be very beneficial when the next owner of that house
Yes.
comes, nothing's been done,
Absolutely.
and we can show that we've made the notifications to meet the regulatory requirement already, and that now the onus is on them.
Absolutely.
in this regard. Okay, thank you for that.
Item 4 is Pump Station 2002 Force Main Installation Bid Rejection. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. I'm going to ask Mr. Klein to go to the podium and pull up some photos for me while we're going over this. Pump Station 2002 is on Arnold Road near the intersection of Ocean Boulevard and Arnold Road near Fiddler's and Crab Daddy's. There's an existing 10-inch cast iron force main that was installed original to the station in the early 1960s. It's had multiple issues which have caused emergency repairs and road closures. So we contracted with TR Long Engineering to design a new 12-inch PVC force main along the northern shoulder of Arnold Road in an attempt to eliminate the pipe being in the center line of the road. We went out for bid and we got back one bid. The sole bid was received from TB Landmark Construction for a total bid price of $769,315. That does not include the price of the material, which we have ordered separately due to lead time issues. And the price of the material is $108,686.30. So all told, you'd be just shy of $900,000 if we move forward with this contract. It is 1,300 feet of pipe. Staff believe the installation in the shoulder would reduce our costs because we wouldn't have to repave. And also, if we had any issues down the road, we wouldn't have to repave. We've worked with Glynn County. Arnold Road is not currently on their projected paving list, so any paving improvements would have to come from JWSC. There are, however, extensive utilities and also improvements, above-ground improvements in that shoulder area. It is very tight. And so I think the cost of the force main bid absolutely took that into account and vastly exceeded what we had budgeted and expected. We had budgeted $500,000 for the total project, and we have, after materials and engineering, $353,000 remaining uncommitted. So this bid is $416,000 over our budget. Worked with our engineering partner, and based off of recommendations, our recommendation is to reject these bids and move it into the northern lane of Arnold Road. And just when we rebid, we will actually pay to pave one lane of Arnold Road. We feel like we're going to save substantial money with that and have a much better opportunity to getting multiple bids. If you've been down Arnold Road, it is very crowded right there. And we had multiple contractors tell us that they were not interested because of how tight that shoulder was doing that install. It was going to be very tough install. Now, with that being said, part of the reason I asked Mr. Klein to pull up pictures, that force main has failed, and so I want to show you some pictures of what this force main looks like, because if we reject these bids, that area is going to be very difficult to do any work during the height of tourist seasons, just because of the amount of traffic that goes through there and that commercial corridor at the end. So we would essentially be delaying these improvements for a year, most likely, until next fall, after Georgia-Florida weekend next fall. So I want to give some indication of what that pipe looks like to make sure that everyone's comfortable with delaying this work, knowing that now, obviously, this section blew out. The pipe obviously doesn't look like that the whole way, but that's a picture from couple of years ago, would you say? A year and a half ago?
How deep is the current force main?
It's 4 feet,
4 feet?
something like that.
Right, there's,
So does heavy equipment going down that road affect it?
Yes, theoretically it would, yes, sir. Assuming it's not compacted properly.
Yeah, vibration on
That's
Thin wall,
That's from
cast iron.
corrosion.
it's cast iron, that's correct.
This
yes.
cast, this was from most likely corrosion issues caused this, but of course, all that vibration, knowing the shape it's in, is making more issues for us in that area.
Where are the brakes located?
There's, if you can pull up, I don't know when well, you see one right there.
Pump station is right there.
Pump station's right there. That patch is the most
Fiddler's.
recent one that blew out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it actually blew out inside that patch, and we had to patch the patch.
Okay, what about if we send that smart ball through it? And see before we spend any more money on this.
We could absolutely do that. I'm sure that Mr. Stewart, or I guess he's still doing those, or would be happy to give us a price on that.
Okay, can we have before we continue our conversation, can we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll move that Facilities Committee recommend the full commission reject all bids for IFB number 22-012 pump station 2002 force main replacement due to insufficient funds being allocated for the project.
I'll second the motion.
I think we need to revise that and just say reject the bid instead of all bids. We only got one bid.
Okay.
Okay, I'll support that. Is there another way that we could get this done? I think about working with contractors that we have on property now, and that we go to them and add scope to a project, because we have people mobilized already. Perhaps we could put the pencil to that and see if that's an option. To look at it and negotiate the cost for the scope change on another project. And perhaps if we can do that, my thoughts are is that if we're successful to do that, we could still keep this on track in terms of timing to get it done before spring.
Where's TB Landmark working for us right now?
They're doing the North Mainland force main installation and the Canal Road water installation.
Yeah, so that's the big project they're doing right now for us.
Right. And even if it is
We're the only
them.
bidder.
Right. And the other thought is, do we know enough about the utilities in that, the north lane of the road that would suggest that even though we're going to pay for asphalt, that that corridor is less congested?
Yes, sir. Based off of all the survey information we've got there, the force main, the existing force main's in the road. So we'd be digging near the existing force main. It'd be located, to the north of the existing force main. And there is one major storm drain that we would have to dive under and then come back up. But on the shoulder, you've got a lot of telecom. There's an existing gravity line there. The water line's luckily on the south side, so that's not in the way.
And there's not much shoulder.
There's essentially no
It's not a
shoulder.
landscaping. Now, my concern is where the force main we're tying into is on the other side of Demery.
No, sir, it's on the east side of Demery.
Okay, so it's on the east side.
It's on the east side
So
of
we don't
Demery.
have to go under Demery.
We don't have to go under Demery. We will be, as what we were planning to do with this, we will be actually boring the section on Demery because it runs right along the edge of Demery. And then the only thing we'd have to dig on Demery would be to actually make the connection right there at the edge of the road. There's a fitting, there's a box there you can actually see if you pay attention right there where that's going to be tied in at.
What's the estimated cost of the smart ball?
50,000. It was about 70,000 to
75 for what we did on.
75 for what we did on 4003, and this force main's shorter than that.
So we did 4003 all the way, didn't we, for
Yes, sir.
that, to make sure, and that's ductile line force main,
Right.
before we did the 4003 pump station. That's the line that goes directly to Academy Creek. And the smart ball will tell us the pipe thickness.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the reason I want to know where the three breaks were, one of them's right there at the pump station. And that's usually where you have a break because
Changing
you got the
direction.
hydrogen sulfide in the pipe and it's eating it up right there. We don't have any air release valves on this line.
No, sir. Not prior to It does go PVC in Demery. There's no ARVs prior to that PVC point.
But we don't know where the other two breaks were.
One of them is about 3/4 of the way down Arnold. Like I said, two of them were in the same spot because we had that break inside where the patch we already made.
Okay,
And then one was about 3/4 of the way down Arnold before you got to Demery.
okay. So would it be better if we went ahead and smart ball it before we spend this money? I mean, even thinking about rebidding it?
If that's what, the board wants to do, we could absolutely do that.
Would it give y'all more confidence that we have a good force main?
It would make me substantially more confident that we would be able to wait till next November to do the work, yes.
Well, quantify the risk.
Quantify the risk better into what happens if we delay going forward, yes.
I mean, this is a critical force main.
It
It's probably
is.
not as critical as one leaving 4003.
There's more flow coming on this station than there's coming, well, not combined flow.
Yeah.
You're right.
What, just in ballpark, what does it cost us to make a repair when we have a blowout? How long is the duration?
The actual repair takes about 6 or 8 hours. Repaving seems to take a little longer than that.
Understood.
But repaving and everything, we're spending, depending on the size we have to repave, somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 for every repair. Most of that goes to paving.
Okay.
Most of that goes to paving.
We've already ordered the materials.
Materials are ordered, so regardless of if we do it next month or wait till next November to do it, we'll still have materials. They'll be stored. And when we get a contractor in here, we'll hand them the materials and go. We know we got tight windows with that corridor and trying to do it when there's not a lot of tourist season going on. We want to make sure that pipe delays are not going to cause any problems.
If we approve the motion, can you, at the next facilities meeting, can you give us a proposal for the smart ball for us to consider?
We can sure try. Assuming they'll send us one in that amount of time, yes, sir.
Again, I think it's worth considering looking at contractors on site and see if we can negotiate something there.
Sure.
Rather than go through the full advertisement bidding process, is add scope, and then we do a change order.
Sure.
And that'll get it done in the next 12 months and not 24 months. The smart ball is going to give us some understanding of what our risk is. It's either going to confirm, uh-oh, we should have already done this, or, whew, we got a little more time to go yet. So it'd be good information to have.
Sure.
But we need to do this before the spring though, too, right?
Ideally,
Otherwise, we got to put it off till.
Yeah, ideally, you're not going to want to do any work in there after spring break until after Georgia-Florida weekend.
Right.
There may be a slight window in between spring break and Memorial Day if we hit it just right, but that'd be about it.
And what was the construction time that we allowed on this project?
60 days. That was for final, so 30 days to actually get the pipe in the ground and 30 days to do the final dressing.
Okay, and then
Is
paving
that-
would
is that
follow.
an issue, you think?
No. It's 1,300 feet of pipe. They can put, if they put 50 feet a day in, they only need 26 days. And they should be able to put more than 50 feet in a day.
Any other questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is a Canal Road Water Production Facility. Mr. Burrs?
Yes, sir. Canal Road Water Production Facility is an existing, we call it a fire well, but that is not an actual EPD terminology for this. It is not a fire well. It is an active well site that does not have treatment capabilities at it. So this is a permitted production well that we do run once a month, but we don't have ground storage tank or chlorine disinfection at that location. So essentially close to the intersection of Canal Road and Harry Driggers, we have a well site there. It's currently being used as a laydown yard for the North Mainland Force Main project. But we want to convert that over to a production well almost exactly like we did at Ridgewood a couple of years ago. So we went out for engineering. We've done aquifer testing at this location, and the existing drawdown is fantastic. This would be a upper Floridan well to reduce the dependency on the two Miocene wells we have in the North Mainland. We received 6 proposals in. 3-member panel scored that, 1 member of operations, 1 from engineering, and 1 for senior leadership. And the highest average score was Thomas & Hutton Engineering with a score of 91. The cost for the proposal is $225,800. That includes construction, admin, and design services. And of the 6 proposals, Thomas & Hutton's was also the lowest cost of the proposals as well. So it's a 120-day design contract.
I have a motion.
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend that full commission award the contract to Thomas & Hutton Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $225,800 for engineering services for the Canal Road Water Production Facility.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Any questions?
I do. Regarding the low bidder here, Thomas & Hutton, have we had any performance issues with Thomas & Hutton in terms of meeting the expectations for completing design on other projects?
Schedule has been an issue on completing. As far as the quality of the design, I think we've been mostly satisfied with that. But schedule, they have had issues in the past, but I will say the most recent one they did with ARCO, they were a little behind schedule, but much closer than they had been in the past.
They did the North Main
They did North
project
Main.
and also the
They did North Main, 35, 36,
ARCO.
ARCO.
Well, just a thought I had is awarding more opportunity to them. And if they're not meeting the schedule, how do we address that? If we're giving them more work, or awarding more work to them.
It is a valid point. I'll be honest, most of our engineering partners have struggled to meet schedules. So we have very little recourse in the contracts for them not meeting schedule. So the only way obviously would be to not give them future contracts like you're talking about. In this situation, it's a fairly straightforward design, I would say, on this. So hopefully it won't be a problem, but that maybe needs something we do in future RFPs to put past schedule compliance as a scoring factor.
I think it'd be beneficial for us to message our partners that time is money, and that when they cost us delays, given the current supply chain concerns we have, it just means it's going to cost more because the prices are going up.
Yes, sir.
And that not only hurts us because we're paying for an engineering product that's late, it hurts our customers ultimately.
Along that same line, my concern with all of the engineers that we've had and the way JWSC has been using engineers in the past is the engineer designs it, and that's basically it. They do assist a little bit with the bid, and sometimes they do some inspection. But to me, they're not near as much involved on the project throughout until startup. And I think we ought to be more involved in startup, because if we're doing all of the inspection and everything, and obviously we got cross wires, and obviously they should be responsible for that. I mean, the pumps need to be pumping what they're supposed to be pumping. The contractor needs to be making schedule, and the engineers need to be understanding they're working for the owner, and the owner's paying their fees. And so I think we're in the process of maybe changing some of those things. We've changed the contracts with the engineers, and I think it's just a matter of JWSC changing some of the policies. And
I will say we are fortunate to have a very qualified engineering staff on site, and we are, from what I've been told, substantially more involved with our projects in the field and through design than most of the people they work with. We take a great deal of ownership in these projects, trying to make sure we get a successful project out of it. And because we have a qualified staff where some other utilities don't have as qualified of a staff, particularly some smaller areas, we are more hands-on with a lot of these projects than what a lot of our sister utilities would be.
Yeah, to the point our chairman made is I'd like to see our contracts include not only the inspection part, but they warranty the design.
Okay.
And that they commission the work. So if there's an issue in the field, they have to get it resolved. Our part on the inspection should just be cursory, touch points, but not owning the inspection activity. or owning the design as far as that goes.
Yes, sir.
Now, this says that it's just design services and produce a bid ready set, but it does include inspection also, right?
Yes, sir. It includes project management and inspection services. Yes, sir.
Another question, when was the well drilled and developed?
It was late eighties. We've got a report, I think, late eighties, I think, is Woodrow Sapp drilled the original.
And who tested it when we tested it before we decided to put this out for bids?
Woodrow Sapp did a recent check on the well.
Have they videoed the casing to make sure the casing's okay and everything?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
We did all that.
Okay. And we have a permit through EPD to withdraw from this well.
Yes, sir.
What's the capacity?
For this well, all of our wells are permitted at 1 MGD.
1 MGD?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The pumping rate they had was 1,400 when they were doing the flow test on it, so it's.
Do we have the well data log and everything on this well?
Yes, yes, sir. We've got good information on this.
And
In
then
fact, Donnie just sent off samples again for, just as an extra, for a full battery for, as American testing up expanded for, everything from hydrocarbons to whatever. So just another check on water quality. So.
The well's not being used now, right?
So it's hooked to the system. If we have a tremendous demand, it can turn on, but it doesn't have on-site ability to add chlorine or phosphate
It doesn't have the storage.
or aerate or anything like that, right?
so when it's finished, should we expect it to look a lot like Ridgewood?
Almost exactly, maybe a different color.
Okay.
I would like for the engineer, though, to properly size the clear well and also the aerator and show us his reasons for that so we understand how we size that based on the water quality and everything.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Next item is engineering services for Academy Creek Waterproof Control Facility Rehab Change Order Number 1. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. As y'all are very aware, we are going through an extensive rehab of the Academy Creek facility, hitting several areas, and we'll show some pictures here in a minute. The project began in December and is expected to be completed currently at the end of March, well before contractual completion date of May 22. All those improvements were designed by Golden Mills Kaywood. And concurrently with the new project going on in July 2020, we had an updated discharge permit from the state that had significant changes to ammonia, BOD, and enterococci, which is a bacteria that is used to test for any contamination. That's a change from fecal coliforms previously. In order to meet the new limit, we've had to make internal improvements to our existing chlorine disinfection and then our disinfection our dechlorination procedures for disinfection. We have increased our dosing rate substantially to meet that. Enterococci, it seems to be more chlorine resistant, and then so we're using more chlorine, and then as a result of using more chlorine, we're using more sulfur dioxide to dechlorinate. Through first quarter 2022, because of supply chain issues, the cost of chlorine and sulfur dioxide has went up almost 25% since the start of the new permit, and we were notified that as of November 1st, the chlorine was going up an additional 50%. Now, with that being said, total cost of this increase is about $50,000 annually. But other than just the increase, the current disinfection procedure, we have a very narrow window for compliance. We have to put enough in there to take care of the enterococci with the resistance, but not put too much that we can't take all of it out on the back end. So we've got a narrow window. It's very operator intensive to do that. You have to keep a very close eye on it. So staff approached GMC about designing improvements to install an ultraviolet disinfection system. We use a UV at Dunbar and at Southport. It's very effective. They have provided the attached proposal for a change order for that, design and construction oversight for a UV system installation for $79,000. We currently have $112,049 uncommitted funding in that project budget. So recommended action from staff would be to approve this change order so that we can begin design of a UV system there. This is the UV system design portion, the construction portion. We have applied for the state funding to include this. It is not a guarantee, but we have got a letter of support from EPD for us to do this, so that should hopefully help us with that funding opportunity.
I'll make the motion. I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend to the full commission approve change order number 1 to the contract of Goodwin Mills Kaywood for Academy Creek Water Pollution Control Facility rehab engineering in the amount of $79,000 for design of UV disinfection system improvements.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second. Are there any questions?
I do. Since we'll be putting the UV system in, we'll be eliminating the chlorine process and thus the dechlorination process. So that in itself is $50,000 a year that we aren't spending in chemicals.
Well, actually, it'll be about $120,000 a year we won't be spending in chemicals. The $50,000 is what it's went up.
The amount of increase.
The increase is $50,000.
So 120 a year is what we would be looking forward to.
And the improvements would be installed in the existing chlorine contact chamber. We'd be modifying that contact chamber to put it in, so we won't be, space is at a premium at Academy Creek, so we won't be expanding our footprint there at
We
all.
would just modify one of the buildings or
We modify
structures.
what's already there, put it in the hole.
And the UV system does equivalent to what the chlorine
Yes.
process
It
does.
does disinfect slightly differently without getting very technical on you. Chlorine actually kills the bacteria. UV actually sterilizes it so it can't reproduce, but they have such a short lifespan that it is disinfected. With that being said, I do want to point out that the estimate from GMC for the construction of the UV system is about $1.8 million. So we're not committing to that today. This is just the design portion of that, but long-term, that would be an install cost for that.
But once you have that in place, then you don't have the uncontrolled cost of chlorine.
We don't have uncontrolled costs of chlorine or sulfur dioxide, and of course, chlorine, having tons of chlorine gas on site is a known safety issue.
And
So for this site, we would eliminate that chlorine storage.
We could eliminate the chlorine storage building and everything right there, which actually would free up some valuable space out there for us.
but is the process automated, or is it?
It's
operator?
automated. You have gates that come into the front of it, and then based off that gate position for flow, it actually ramps the UV dosage up and down based off the bulb. So essentially, a dimmer switch on the bulb,
Mhm.
and it turns up the intensity and down based off the flow.
So it's automated, the operator.
It's all done by
doing
PA.
Like they're doing now.
All done by PLC. And we are, as part of the project we have now, we are making some electrical improvements. They went ahead and designed the electrical improvements when they did it to begin with for the opportunity to do this, so we won't have to make any new electrical changes as a portion of this.
Sounds very positive to me.
I've got a few questions. Will this be a change order, or will it be rebid for construction?
Depends on where we're at with the existing project by the time the materials could get here.
What's the equipment cost?
Equipment costs between $800 and $1 million, depending on what we went with.
Is that what the proposal is that we've gotten from?
I haven't gotten a specific proposal from a provider, but that's the estimated equipment cost from Goodwin Mills Kaywood.
I thought we got a proposal from Trojan.
Not for, not for this one. We did for Dunbar, but not for this one.
Should we pre-purchase that equipment?
We could absolutely pre-purchase the equipment as soon as the design was finished. We could go ahead and order the equipment.
Yep.
Because that's gonna be the delivery time.
You're talking about 6 months getting it
We got a
delivered, right?
contractor there right now, so if we
And-
pre-purchased it right now, once we decide to do this, we know the size of it.
Right, we go ahead and get it ordered. That would make it more likely they would still be in town and wouldn't have to remobilize to do the project.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's, once we get the 30% design on the
Right.
project, we know what size it is.
Go ahead
Bring
and
it
get it
forward
ordered.
so we can
Right.
issue that as a
And,
support.
obviously, we have trouble with our UV at Dunbar, but we don't at Southport, so we got a manufacturer we're kinda pleased with.
We have, yes, sir. We,
I don't see in Goodwin Mills and Kaywood where they have any time for them to complete this work in their proposal. Did I miss it?
no, sir, there's no specific time frame in there. It would
Shouldn't
be
they
run
tell-
concurrent with their current contract. Their current contract runs through the end of May for construction oversight, so it's just going to run concurrent as a change order with their existing contract. They're not requesting an extension right now for design.
we could.
But
order
we
equipment
need to
once
know,
they
we
get
need to know how
ready.
long it's gonna take them to design this portion of the project, though.
Okay.
Because we don't wanna wait till May to get this designed.
No, we'll have it
so-
well before May. We'll have it well before May.
So can we get a,
I can get that number from them this
schedule from
afternoon.
them that we can put in the agreement with them?
Yes, sir.
What do you think it should be?
Honestly, 60 days, maybe 90 days. I don't know about what your thoughts on that are, but it shouldn't take too long. A little concrete work and some
The,
equipment sizing.
Chlorine contact chamber, we could perhaps use the rest of it for post aeration if we wanted to do that too.
Not currently a need, but we could do that, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I just think that we do need to have a time schedule for them to complete the design.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? If none, all in favor? Motion carries. Discussion, SCADA demonstration.
Yes, sir. There was a request by a couple of commissioners to see what we were actually doing with this SCADA project we've had ongoing. So, and now I will say I am not a SCADA expert, but I'll show you what I know. All right, so we've been changing out. We have 163 active pump stations. We had done some of these changeouts previously due to other projects, but we have installed and got online 136 new SCADA panels throughout our system since January 1st. And for those of you, SCADA is supervisory control and data acquisition. Essentially,
Of all that.
2.6 million. Which again, 2.6 million, if you divide it by 136, is about $19,000 per site. Just we did a lot of them. So this SCADA system is VTSkate. It's a very user-friendly platform. Everything's done in what they call high-performance graphics. Not a lot of colors. Anything that's colored will show you something needs to be addressed. So these are a list of all the pump stations as you see here. And every one of these you can kind of see these boxes here. You may not can read it necessarily on the screen because it is in black because, again, it's high-performance graphics. Those little squares are all the pumps. And you can see which pumps are on, which ones are off. So if it has turned to white, we can pull the screen up and figure out exactly which one of our stations are running, which of the pumps at the station. So here at pump station 4048, this is the one on Highway 17, right down from Nick's. Pump 1 is currently running at that station right now. We can pull that up and see everything in our system. And as you scroll down, it just keeps going and going because we have so many pump stations. One of the reasons we wanted to do this is the existing SCADA software we were using was not open architecture. Everything that had to be changed, you had to go back to the provider to do. We had no control over what was going on. We can make improvements in this ourselves. We have a SCADA tech, David Grantham, who has the ability to build pages, make changes, and everything like that. But we also, for the majority of these stations, some of them we don't have the actual electronics on site for pumping reasons to do this. We can bidirectionally control these facilities to where we can turn pumps on remotely, turn pumps off remotely. So if somebody calls and say, hey, we got a force main break out here, instead of having to take 20 minutes to drive out there and cut the pumps off, we can cut them off within 2 minutes. It can be done with your phone very easily. So this is the full screen here. Then I want to show you this. We have what's called a subway setup. And it looks like a subway map. Well, this shows you the layout of our system. And again, anything that's in white is pumping, including those force mains. So we can tell exactly where flow is going through the force mains in the system at right now. And why is that important? Well, if you have something occur downstream, particularly if you've got newer staff online and they don't know the system very well about what needs to be cut off, if we know downstream there's issues, we can follow this back upstream and turn off stations that are necessary. It also kind of helps explain why when we upgrade pump stations, we take into account, like 4028, there's 3 or 4 pump stations that pump into that, so we take all that into account when we're sizing these. So if we go into these individual pump stations, we have this for the whole system. This is a city in North Mainland, and then we have one for, it says, it's labeled SSI, but it's St. Simons, and then down here is South Mainland. We have a substantially smaller system at South Mainland, so we were able to fit it on this page and cut down the number of pages. But you can see these pumps that are running in current and as such. So I'm going to zoom in here to one of these pump stations as soon as I can find it. that I know. Okay, pump station 2003. This is back in Oglethorpe Point. So if you go to every one of these pump stations, they all have individual pages that look like this. So we can tell, some of them have radar devices, which is what one of this has. So you have floats as a backup. We also have radar devices that'll tell us the exact flow. So there's currently 7.8 feet of water from the bottom of the wet well in that station. Now, what I can do is I can go into this pump here, click on pump 1, and force it to run. This is going to be not very exciting because it takes a second to click in. But so override, so I turn that pump on by hand, and in a minute you'll see this start to pump down. It takes some time for the communication to get there to turn it on, but you'll see this number start to drop.
Is this cellular-based communication?
All cellular-based communication. So every station has a cellular modem at it. Currently, the way we do our communication is via radio, so they all go to one collector point. So if a collector goes down, we may be blind for 15 stations. Now we would lose one station, not lose it, but we just wouldn't be able to see one station instead of not being able to see 15 at one time.
So we pay a cellular,
Cell phone bill
each station.
at each station, yes, sir. So you see it's already dropping, and we can see that. And this white line here is actually a trend line that shows what it's doing, so you can see the flow as it comes up and down throughout the day.
So everything's real time then?
Everything's real time. There, it does a polling loop every 15 minutes. So you, even if you don't force it to change, it will get an update at least every 15 minutes.
Okay.
So let me shut this off before I forget and burn up a pump here. But with that being said, we did talk about this trend line. One thing, Commissioner Terpsey, you ask frequently in these meetings is, what about run times? Well, currently getting run times out of our system, we set them up on Friday and come back Monday and hope that the runtime data has actually downloaded. On this one here, I can click on this little pump trends button, and there's the runtime already. So it tells me this is for one day. In the past day, this pump has ran 3 hours and 46 minutes, and this pump has ran 3 hours and 39 minutes. And I can change, also 15 starts and 14 starts. Starts are also critical for motor life. Now, this station hasn't been on as long on VTSkate, so we're not going to have extensive data, but if say I want to know for the last 2 weeks, I can tell what the average, that 0.2 or 0.27, that is over a 24-hour period, 20% of the day it's been on, 27% of the day it's been on, so you can back out on average what that runtime is for that station. So we have all those levels of data, and the ones with the radars on the wet well, we can actually get wet well trends. So we can see the flow actually go in and up, the level go in up and down in the station as flow comes in. Now, this one has a pretty rapid up and down because we actually run the level a little higher in this station to avoid air stripping back in that neighborhood. So some of them you would see much longer fill cycles and pump cycles than this. This is a little short cycled because of that. But just to keep, this is a note there. So if you want to know anything about our system, now we can get this information for you, and it takes longer to log into the system and find the pump station than it does to actually get this information out. So our crews will be able to come in every morning, and they can go through every one of these stations and see if they have any problems. And then if we also go to this station again here, it has an ongoing station logbook. So if we have a crew member go out to a station, he can put in there what he did while he was out there. So when next time somebody's out there at 1 in the morning when we have an alarm, he can look up and see what happened last time he was there. Now, I will say, I'm glad I pulled this one up because it doesn't appear to be anything that's misspelled or inappropriate on the station logbook here. But we can do these. We are going to fill these in. We can have descriptions here of what the pump manufacturer is, what the flow rate is, what the set points are. We can also pull up where it is on the map. Those are being filled out. They're being GPSed as part of this project, and those are going to be uploaded. So again, we'll be able to have all that level of information.
Does the person doing the work have to log into the system so you know who's?
Yes. So see here, T. Dobbs and Jones.
Okay.
T. Dobbs is Timothy Dobbs, and Jones is Dion Jones. Those are lift station techs that we have.
Okay.
So it's recorded who did it, and you can also put sticky, well, they call them sticky notes, kind of like you have on your desktop computer. You can put sticky notes through the system where it notes if we had a trend that got out of whack. We can put a sticky note so when somebody's going back through and say, okay, what happened here? Well, somebody has noted what happened here is we were working on it. We had to shut the station down so the level got up. So we know all that historical information. So,
What about overall in the system, what about alerts? Does the system send out alerts for
yes.
issues?
So right here, these are all the current active alarms we have in our system.
Okay.
The flashing red lights means there's an alarm. Now, they're currently still doing work on several of these stations, so you'll see some alarms throughout the day. I mean, that's going to happen.
Right, of course.
And I'm not going to acknowledge these because they may need to know that that's going on. But you'll see all these alarms, and these alarms actually dial out through our cell phone system. Whoever's on call, it changes each week, and whoever's on call gets a phone call. And if they don't respond in a time period to the phone call, which I believe is 5 minutes or 15 minutes, then it'll call somebody else. And if they don't respond, it'll call somebody else. Now, it will get to me if you go through 5 people.
I wonder where you were.
But knock on wood, that mine hasn't rang for VTSkate yet. So, but if we do have an issue, it does call multiple people so that we don't miss out on alarms. Now, some of these alarms that we may go in, say here, this one says intrusion. An intrusion alarm just means the panel's open.
Yeah.
They're probably out there working. If we know that's going on, we're not going to respond to an intrusion alarm.
So the things on the left side there's different levels of alerts. Is that
There's
correct?
different levels of alerts. You know, obviously some of them would be critical, and so the lift station tech actually has discretion in the middle of the night when he pulls up and says, this alarm is such and such. He doesn't necessarily have to respond to every alarm, but he can pull it up on his phone at home
And see
and see what's going on, so he doesn't have to come in for a nuisance alarm. He can just, and if he comes in, he'd get 2 hours of overtime for doing that. First, he can just roll over, click that it's fine, and then he gets 15 minutes for accepting a SCADA call. He still gets paid for being woken up in the middle of the night, but he doesn't have to come in here and waste 2 hours at 1 in the morning and then lose all his entire night's sleep because of a nuisance alarm.
Do we have switches in the panels, like a supervisory switch you flip out when you're in there doing work so it doesn't produce an intrusion alarm?
No, sir, we do not. But what we do have, we can, and I'm not going to do it here, but you can shelve alarms. So if we know we're doing work in the alarm, we can shelve it for 2 hours, or we can shelve it for 4 hours. Or if we know something, if, for example, we know a lid has to be open on a wet well because there's going to be a bypass hose in there, we can shelve it indefinitely until that's done so it doesn't call out.
Right.
So we can shelve all those alarms.
Okay. What about on our water production facilities? We have the SCADA.
We do not have this system on water production facilities. We have them on Ridgewood. That one's online, as we just brought that on. When we do the Canal Road site, it will be brought on. But my goal, once we finish this up, which is supposed to be finished by the end of the year, would be in next year's capital budget would be to get the water stations online for this. Of course, it'd be substantially less money to do 13 water stations versus 136 locales.
Include tanks and all of that.
It'll have all the tank information in there. We'll be able to pull it all up. So this system is a lot more user-friendly. We're still, we have a collection system analyst that can run automatic reports every day of any nuisances that we have going on. If we pull up one of these trends and you see that trend cycle up and down and then one time it seems to run a little longer, then that tells you a pump's clogged up because the pump ran longer than it normally did. We go out there and check that instead of waiting for it to clog up and actually tighten down and break a shaft or something. So it gives us a lot more data about how we're operating our system.
How many stations do we have flow meters on?
Flow meters, 20 or 30.
How many should we have them on?
That's up for debate.
Differences depending
Can y'all go through and decide if we need to put some more flow meters on? Because that's gonna help us with the II, I think, and everything.
I am personally not in fan of flow meters. I think you can do it all with knowing the dimensions of your wet well and how much it cycles. You do drawdowns and you can figure out, it's not 100% accurate, but it's not $25,000 a station either to put it in the ground. So I'm fairly anti-flow meter.
So can this be programmed so it would tell us what the flow?
We can do what's called virtual flow meters in this, yes, sir.
So it could be programmed so we would know what the flow is from that pump station?
Yes, you would need a radar device at every location, which is about $1,000 per location, so you can get an actual level reading. It's not just float-based. But if you put a radar device, you can generate a virtual flow meter. Well, it will estimate what the flow leaving the station is at that time.
So this is obviously web-based software,
Yes, this is
because it's available in PCs and on phones.
PCs, phones, tablets. So
And what about the security of the system? does require the log on.
It requires a log on, and we have lift stations, we have plants, the wastewater plants are on this, and you have different log-ons which system you're on. So every time I have to log on, I have to call the SCADA guy and ask which one of my logins I'm supposed to be using.
Okay, so those are separated out.
Those are separated out.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
And everybody that has their log on has different permissions.
Right, of
So
course.
most people just have view or add notes. They can't go in and obviously change pages or turn on and off equipment or anything like that. So we have different writing privileges, so to speak, on that.
And would it safe to assume that all of our staff that does any kind of work and the engineering staff all have adequate training on this?
Well, one thing we were going to get to as portion of this project, they're finishing up this week the final terminations and bringing them online, and then we have 40 hours of training in the contract.
Okay.
So early December, we're going to have multiple days of training for different focuses. So Todd's reasoning for using it is much different than somebody's out in the field's reason for using it is. So we'll have a dedicated day of training for, Todd and Jason and Harry and their level that they need to know the information. David Grantham, who's doing a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, I'll be honest, Todd doesn't want to know all that he has to do behind the scenes to do that. So
He has all the permission.
and he has all the permissions. But yes, early December before Christmas, we'll be going through a week of training for individuals, probably a day per person, depending on what their needs are.
Obviously very comprehensive and well thought out, so.
What are we doing with the old panels?
They are being salvaged.
Okay.
DFS has offered to buy them back from us.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I will say buy them back at a substantially depreciated rate.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
Can we amend the motion to add executive session this time so Charlie can,
Well, he's going to be here for 3 o'clock as well.
he is?
Yes, sir. So
Okay,
you got him for the rest of the afternoon.
all right. The next item is water pollution control plant flows report. Mr. Burris?
Yes, sir. Let me pull this up here. All right. Water pollution control plant report here at Academy Creek. It was a fairly normal month as far as rainfall, so the average flow leaving the plant at Academy was 7 million gallons. Plant was well within compliance on all of our parameters. And then 96% removal of BOD and TSS. And again, that's ongoing with 2 of the clarifiers out for existing rehab from the project. One of the aeration basins not being able to be used if necessary because they were doing some work on that. And of course, portions of the plant are currently bypassed due to the ongoing project work. So I will say, you'll see an NA over here on the water meter report. One of the casualties of our plant project was a destroyed water meter. So we did not have adequate water meter readings for the plant for the month, but that has since been replaced. But you'll see a lot of sludge going to the landfill. We were having some problems with our dryer, and Mr. Alvin got Sarah fixed, and he has been making space in the digesters ever since. So he's been draining them pretty good, trying to get that through. One of the improvements we did in the project was actually install new polymer mixing equipment and polymer dosing equipment for the drying, and we also separated the sludge lines. So we also have been running both presses at the same time periodically to make sure we can do that. We have separate feed controls, and we have a lot better control of actually how we're dosing our polymer now. So I am a belt press nerd, and I go by there every time I go past there, and the belt presses look better since we put the new mixing equipment in than the whole time I've been here. So that's been a tremendous success for us. Anybody wants to go look at belt presses, I'll be happy to spend all day down there with you. On our graph, flow rate got up a little bit during the summer and is starting to come back down here, but very much in line with where we've been the past couple of years, which to me indicates we are making progress on the I&I system because we are seeing substantial growth in the mainland district, particularly in the North Mainland district, and for us not to see a substantial increase in flow is a benefit to us. Dunbar Creek, 2.9 million gallons leaving the facility this month, 71%. Well within compliance there at Academy Creek. We'll note we got our pre-draft permit for Academy Creek reissuance last week, or week before last. And so we are seeing a slight reduction in some of our numbers, but all of these numbers would meet the new permit as well as the existing permit. So very well done by the facility there at Dunbar Creek. 98% removal of BOD and 99% removal of TSS. On the removal of TSS. They have filters. We brought that up before on the Academy Creek project. The filters are installed. We are just waiting on gates to get here so we can actually divert the flow over there to those new filters. So those should be brought online within the next month or two, depending on delivery. See the flow here again, for, fluctuations month to month, but overall fairly consistent with where we were seeing throughout last year. And Southport, just shy of 500,000 gallons a day coming into that facility. We're getting a majority of that water is actually coming in from the port from their car washing facilities. So you do see some lower influent concentrations just because of the amount of pure water that's coming in versus wastewater that's associated with that. But 96% BOD and almost 99% TSS there, and plant being operated very effectively. Miss Angela Walker, who's actually our pretreatment coordinator, but is a licensed wastewater operator, has actually been running this facility for the past 6 months because we've been short licensed operators. But we were able to get her last week, or this week is her last week down there at that facility, so she can get back focused on some of her pretreatment duties. But she has stepped in and done great work for us for the past several months down there at Southport.
That's really commendable that she can do that. It gives a lot of flexibility to staff to be able to respond to that.
Absolutely. So
She also made a really good presentation at the Georgia Rural Water Conference up in Helen, Georgia in October. It was real good to have her do that, and it was probably one of the best presentations made at the whole conference.
she is a fantastic asset for joint water and sewer.
She really has a passion for our industry.
She has a great passion for fog, which, I like belt presses, she likes grease traps, so we're all good. And then, as you see on the chart there, the flow rate at Southport is highly consistent month to month. So I actually think the reason we got out of whack last year and early this year was a calibration issue on the flow meter, not necessarily an increase in flow. But all three plants being operated very effectively by our staff. Again, particularly at Academy Creek with the ongoing project. There's something new every day they have to deal with the project, and doing very well operating that facility.
Andrew, on Academy Creek, you mentioned the dryer failing. Have we thought about maybe seeing what the cost of another dryer would be?
Estimated cost from suppliers, I haven't got official proposals. Estimated cost would be somewhere to $3 to $4 million to put a second dryer in.
Should we be getting that at least so we can be thinking about that and budgeting for that?
Could certainly do that, yes, sir.
And then we're handling the disinfection, but the ammonia. What are we doing so far as the ammonia? Because I think the engineer's supposed to be giving us some recommendations on that.
They are. We're looking at some opportunities now for how to increase our recycle sludge rate. And one of the issues we're having in increasing that rate is the pumps are ragging up. The screens are not effective down there now. One of the main things we're trying to change with this project are the new influent screens. But we got a lot of rags in the system and they're clogging pumps up. So we're looking at proposals to putting in a chopper style pump that will actually not clog up with the rags, but shred the rags when they're going through there. And so we can increase the rate. Currently, we can only do about 60% maximum of flow through our recycle streams. But if we're looking at proposals for these pumps now of what it would take to get to 100% recycle capabilities, which is the standard design parameter. So if we're going to buy new pumps, let's buy the right new pumps and get it taken care of so we can do that. And then we're also looking at ways to add what's called an anoxic zone to our basins so that an anoxic zone actually allows the basin, the nitrifiers will use the ammonia for their food source instead of using oxygen and carbon for their food source, but you have to remove the presence of oxygen. Well, our system is pure oxygen. So it's kind of hard to remove the presence of oxygen when you're dosing oxygen. So we're looking for ways we can handle that as well. But I will say these numbers, that 11.6, obviously that number's higher than that had been most months in the past. Got out of whack first week or two. Second half of the month we were down under 7. First week of this month we were down at 5.
And what's the new permit limit?
2. Oh, sorry, 1. 2 is Denbar.
And I still think we might need to adjust the pH too, because obviously it looks like we're using some alkalinity up.
Yes, sir. We have ordered the equipment to test for alkalinity. It has come in, and staff has been instructed to make sure that we have those results for the month of November.
Any questions? Thank you, Andrew. Next item is the capital project report, Mr. Klein and Mr. Burns.
I'll let Mr. Klein talk for a few minutes.
Thanks, sir. Let's see. All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll go through the projects, touch on the high points, and any questions anytime, please stop me and let me know. Project 702 is the North Mainland Reroute project, which includes pump station upgrades at 40, 35, and 36. So 40, 36 is, or excuse me, 40, 35, which is right off of 341 in Arco area. That's the top two pictures are of 40, 35. That's inside the electrical control room. And then the second picture top right is down in the pump area of the dry pit there. You can see the holes cut into the interface or the wall between the, that's this area here. You can see the portal's cut here. These are what's cut in between the wet area where it holds all the wastewater. Pumps will be connected here and through the wall here, and then that'll all be grouted together. And we're still waiting on pumps, hoping for the first week of December, somewhere around 1st of December, for pumps to arrive. Also at 35, you can see our BioRem tower here. That's our odor control tower for odor issues there at the station. It really won't provide much help upstream or anything like that, but right there around the station, it will control the odors there. Another room inside, the guys working on cleaning up in there. Another shot down in the pump room of 36. Down at the very bottom, and then they're also doing some demo there at 36 on the very bottom too. And pump station 4036 is the end of B&W Grade Road off of Jessup, Old Jessup. So we're cleaning out the wet wells, getting a lot of the old concrete structure out of there, and renewing those, rejuvenating. Okay, sister project to this 702 is the force main installation on Harry Jiggers Road. And all of the open cut segments are in the ground now. And there's just a couple segments to go back and drill. And the contractor, TB Landmark, their large rig arrived, I think it's a 100-ton rig, arrived today. So if you go out there, you'll see that rig out there. And TB Landmark is also going to make a couple directional drills for our water line project we'll talk about here in a second. But water main installation, if you've been in that area, you've seen a detour on Canal Road for local traffic only. And that detour is going to sunset essentially the use of it today. Today's the last day they'll be doing that. They'll have one more single lane closure in about 2 weeks for the final tie-in down at Gateway to tie the water in, or the force main in. Let's see. So a lot of activity in that area. Okay, pump station 4003, project 703. And that project is substantially complete. It's in operation. And we are whittling through the last couple punch list items and working diligently with the engineer of record to close that out. That station's in good shape. It's essentially a brand new pump station. And actually, suction lift station. I would call this a lift station.
This is an actual lift station.
So that's a shot of the pumps there, Gorman Rupp pumps. Those are actually suction lift pumps. And the new interior of the dry pit side. And again, here, just like the 40, 35, 36, this wall here is the interface between the dry side where the pumps are and the wet side where the wastewater is on the other side of that wall. That's the wet well on the other side. Well, excuse me, 3 actually goes to a new structure outside of the original structure, the wet well. Okay, project 704 Canal Road, Glencoe 12-inch water main. TB Landmark is also installing 2 casings underneath the FLETC back driveways for us, or back entrances. And they'll be doing that here very soon. Now that they've got their 100-ton rig here, they can use the same rig to do that. And then the rest of the balance of the open cut installation is done by in-house forces, water distribution. Magnolia Water Improvements, Joint Waters activity with this project is complete. We are just waiting on final record drawings and final pay application from the City of Brunswick. The contract between is actually between the contractor and the City of Brunswick, and we reimburse the City of Brunswick for expenses, our portion of the project. City of Brunswick is going to continue with the storm and roadway improvements in Magnolia. They have the funding to do that now, and all of Magnolia Park will have new roadways out there when they're complete. Okay, Academy Creek, Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. We've got photos there of the new sludge offloading facility. The equipment for the live bottom bin is supposed to be delivered this week. We've been getting the 2-week delay every 2 weeks, so we'll see when that actually shows up. On the right there, you see the filters. Again, the filters are ready to go. We just can't get the water over there to them because we can't get the gates in to divert the water. So you can see the filters there. They're covered up. That material should not be just left out in the sun, so they've tarped that cloth material to make sure that doesn't occur. Grading is installed, and they're going to come back once the canopy gets there. There'll be a canopy over the top of that to keep the sun out of there, and also give a place for our guys to get out of the sun when they're doing their work. Down on the bottom there, I said AB1 can't be used right now because they've been building that little box off the side so that we can actually return sludge into AB1, because on the picture to the right, scroll to the right, that box that's about half torn down now is currently where the RAS for AB1 comes back to. So that box is going to be completely done away with when they finish the box to the left there. So we had to modify AB1 to put that flow in there so that it can be used now, but it was being formed up. We had to cut a hole in the side of the wall to allow that to occur. But if you haven't been down there, our contractor, Ruby Collins, down there, they do fantastic concrete work. So it's got a very nice finish on that concrete, that structure. There's the new splitter box, and where you see those gentlemen standing next to those 30-inch pipes right there, that is those pipes have now been extended past the existing splitter box and are about, or as of yesterday, they were about to make the turn. They did run into a unexpected electrical duct bank that is in the way that we're having to work around. And then you see well, that's one of the electrical panels that's being replaced. As you can see there on the left, that one probably needed to go. But that's being replaced. And then the electrical contractor has been rapidly installing a fiber optic loop around the facility. So they've been installing fiber. There'll be a loop around the outside of the facility so we can drop fiber connections to all of our unit processes and bring them all into SCADA. And that little box there is actually a fiber optic handhold, so that when we need to cut into the fiber optic or re-terminate to drop lines off, they go in that box instead of having to dig it all back up. Was notified they are now expecting end of March instead of end of February for their completion. They're contracted through the end of May, so they're still well within their contract time. But they're running out of things they can do until larger materials start showing up. They've renegotiated their schedule, changed things around, a vastly different way than what they were intending to do the project, but eventually things have got to start showing up.
Okay, next project, 2001, is the 4105 Basin reroute, which includes 4036, cured in place pipelining, which is ongoing. Matter of fact, they're out there right now putting liners in by Rich CPAC off of Glendale. And you can see them doing right now. They're setting up bypasses for 2 shots tonight. So this is cleaning typical pipes. You can see some of the condition. The top 2 photos, next photo, then a finished pipe at the lower right-hand side. You can see one of the reasons, including this picture, is the wrinkle that you can see in there. That happens. It's not functionally terrible. As long as it's not in the very bottom of the flow line, it generally does not cause an issue with the benefit to the new liner, and the slick coating on the inside now outweighs that. and structural benefits.
And we ever line force mains?
We have not here ever
I
lined a
don't
force
think
main.
joint water has. Yeah. I know it's been done.
I think one of the main issues with lining a force main would be the length of some of our force mains would make that impossible.
Or like Arnold Road, though?
We might could line, well, thinking out loud here, but they wouldn't be able to make the turn. It'd have to be a straight shot.
Have to cut in a manhole,
Have to cut in a manhole.
I have a
pressurized
question.
manhole.
On that picture in the bottom right there with that pipe that's already been lined,
Yes.
the typical flow on that would the pipe be half full, when the flow is going on?
A little less than half full normally. At high flow events, it'd get up to about 80% full.
Correct, yes. Yes. The wet, or the flow you see right there is actually probably standing water from where, you see the jetter very in the back over
Right,
there?
yeah.
You can see the spray head back there,
Right,
the
that's- yeah,
camera's
that's
following
essentially
that.
no flow.
Correct, yes. Okay, Bergen Woods Offsite Force Main is a comprehensive agreement with the developers of Bergen Woods apartment complex off the spur, just south of the safety complex. The force main is in the ground. We're just waiting for the contractor to make the final connection to the manhole on Cape Road, and then also install the fittings and whatnot to facilitate connection from the safety complex pump station 4116, and also for Bergen Woods when they're ready to connect with their pump station.
As far as Bergen Woods, though, you can see the land clearing going on immediately behind our project where they're going to put that facility at.
Correct. They're still in the development review process with Glynn County, but they're wrapping up their construction plans for approval. Sea Palms, not much to report here, there. That'll be some in-house efforts to replace waterline rehab and relocations within Sea Palms. Oak Grove Force Main, this was a comprehensive agreement entered between the developer of some residential units, planned residential units on the western side of Oak Grove Island, and their intent was to extend a force main through the main thoroughfare of Oak Grove and then reach the public system to discharge to. And bids were received on this, and we've talked to the engineer owner's rep on this, and they're still determining which way they want to go with this project, since pricing came in, it was around $2 million.
Did we take bids on that?
Yes, sir.
It was publicly bid, correct, so. We do hope that they decide to move forward with the project, because that opens up a large number of potential customers for joint water and sewer.
Who are the other bidders?
TB, Seaboard, and
Did Popco do this
I
one
think
too?
Popco may go
Popco.
on that one as well.
Popco. 2002 Force Main, we spoke about this a little bit earlier. This is where we received bids and facilities, as you recommended, for the full commission to consider taking another look at that project. Came in at $770,000, and as we discussed before, tight right away, and perhaps we'll do a little investigation with smart ball technology possible. We'll explore that for sure. Arco area water and sewer extensions, we spoke about that as well. Looking forward to that project hitting the ground in the beginning. Community Road, sewer expansion. The currently exploring the necessary easements required per the engineer's design. And we're even taking a look at this in discussions with the engineer on there, and any other options maybe that we can do with this project here. But that's going to open up the gravity service to the commercial district within Community Road. Galvanized replacements, in-house crew. Caleb and Alvin there. And just an assortment of some of the materials they pull out of the ground there. You can see the corrosion in our soils. Shows no mercy on especially dissimilar metals when they're in contact with each other. But galvanized fittings and brass and iron fittings, that type of thing. Pump Station 4116 rehab, force main upgrade, safety complex. That project is essentially on hold, just waiting for final electrical components to arrive, get those installed. We're going to do a startup, power service relocation. We're going to provide that. I think it was, the original pole was a 6x6. We're going to what's a lot 8-inch true service pole with that to current Georgia Power specs. And site's been graded, actually brought in a bunch more dirt. Systems Pumping did that. Contractor worked with us and they just graded it out for us, did a great job. So site looks really nice. It's gonna look real good when it's fenced in. Brand new pump station there. So and that serves the safety complex, a vital asset for the community here. If you go out there, they currently have a fence, security fence around the whole property, not just our pump station. Meter replacements, and I know Ms. LaDonna, you covered this pretty well earlier. And this is a map provided by Ms. LaDonna there of just the audit progress or the audit map itself.
So all those reddish orange dots have the yoke bar set up, correct? So that gives you an idea what the change order we approved of where they're all at.
We had a lot of them on St. Simon's.
A whole bunch.
What is the end date on the overall project
We had that as a
forecasted?
we had that as a 4-year project, but now I'm absolutely escalating it, or,
They suggest at a once they get to full ramp up, they'll be able to do 100 meters a day.
2,000 a year.
100 a day,
100 a day.
500 a week. So you're talking about they could put in 20 to 25,000 in a year.
Okay. Well,
So year and a half.
yeah, that's better.
If they can get the materials here, they can get them in the ground.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then priority basin clean and CCTV, that's in progress right now.
So these are some sections here. You can see the numbers there on the bottom a little bit. 4035, of course, is the one that's being upgraded on Ross Road. Most of these is over in the Glendale area, or not Glendale, Glen Haven area, right there by Dunbar Creek. You see some of the debris was in the lines. They're cleaning these lines out and then televising them for us. It's about 71,000 feet of pipe in this contract. Southeast Pipe's been working on that. And then one project that has got started since we completed the project report is the Sea Palms West CIPP project. They're jetting a bunch of those lines, trying to get them cleaned out. A lot of tuberculation in those old ductile iron lines. And we have found some issues that we are actively trying to determine how to best approach. Those lines are about 16 feet deep in there, and they're not going to be, it's going to be, if we have to do point repairs, they're going to be very complicated. So we're examining our trenchless options. Some of the 3 of the lines we found at current state, we would not be able to actually line. So we're trying to look, because you're getting sugar sand falling in as they pull a vacuum trying to clean it, more sand's falling in, you get sinkholes forming. So we're trying to figure out ways to grout the soil around it and stabilize the soil long enough that we can actually clean it and pull the bag through and line it. It's, as the contractor said, you didn't give me the easy ones, did you? So, but they are supposed to have their lining crews here. The cleaning crews are here now. The lining crews here are supposed to be the Monday. They're supposed to be coming in the Monday after Thanksgiving. So
what causes the debris in the pipes like this?
usually this occurs during higher flow events. The velocity slows down the line. Stuff settles out. All of this stuff, no, we didn't give you any after pictures. These are all pre-pictures, but all this stuff comes out of the line pretty easily.
When you see the white sand,
Yeah, the white sand is the problem.
that means you need to start looking for a
White sand, we got stuff
sinkhole somewhere.
sprinkling in
Yeah.
through the system.
See, that's not good.
Yeah, well, you don't like to see the white sand. Black stuff's been in there for a while. Okay, well, that concludes the picture portion of the active we'll have actually at least one more pump station 4044 on the list next time, and hopefully we'll have some dedication surveys in hand from our folks at LEA over in Valdosta. And as normal, we had the spreadsheets attached, and
I will say,
wherever my thing went. There
trying
it
to
is.
zoom out.
Thank you.
Good reports. The pictures are looking prettier, except for the last two or three.
They look good for, yeah.
The
except
last
for
two or
last
three
couple.
look prettier once we're done with it. We
Yeah.
just gave you the
Yeah.
pre-photos.
That's it.
Because they're more exciting.
That's
We like
right,
the pretty
that's right.
pictures.
Yeah, liners are boring to look at. So, a lot of good projects going on. There's our Gantt chart, of course, as well. Then EVA there.
EVA, just to note, we're 78% schedule compliance right now. Once the meter project kicks back off in earnest, that number should shoot up.
I'm very encouraged that the indices continue to improve, and kudos to the entire team for making that happen. Given a $66 million construction project overall, I'd say that's superb.
Well, last 2 years ago, we spent about $4.9 million on capital projects. Last year, we spent $16.7 million, and through today, we were at over $8.7 million for the year. So we're doing a lot more project work than what we were doing just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Andrew, tell us about the status of the generator project.
Generator project with FEMA, we are working with purchasing to get out purchase the generator separately. We've got one major generator on Academy Creek. We've got to figure out exactly where we're going to land it at. It's a 1,250 kW generator, so it takes up quite a lot of space. And of course, at a wastewater plant, there's pipe everywhere in the ground. So we're trying to figure out what's the most successful way to locate that. But we've also been told by our electrical engineer and generator suppliers that we're looking at a minimum 6-month lead time to get generators delivered right now. So we are looking to purchase the generator separately to get them here and get them coming so that when we get a contractor on board, they're not having to just sit and wait for 6 months once the generators are ordered. It also takes a lot of the risk off the contractors for generator prices changing from when they bid to when they actually order them. So we've got to order 8 fixed generators and 5 portable generators, ranging anywhere from a 200 kW to a 1250.
Did we just complete a generator installation on the Frederica Road? There's a pumping station north of Benny's.
Oh, that's a bypass pump that had to go in there. Had a
Okay.
bit of a problem when the pump starts pulling away from the wall.
Mm-hmm.
They don't work anymore at that point, so had to get on bypass so we could actually get down in that wet well and straighten the pump back up.
Okay. That's why the crane was on site.
The crane
too.
was on site to handle that, yes, sir.
Okay.
And I will say, in situ form that's doing the Sea Palms West, they've also located a bypass pump at that station so that if one of these ductile lines collapses while they're in there, the pump's at the pump station a quarter mile down the street instead of them having to run back to Jacksonville to get it. So they were proactive in that approach.
Good plan. And regarding our water replacement project in Sea Palms, I would just encourage the team to coordinate with the resort there, because when they have activities, that's a lot more road traffic.
Well, obviously, any work we have to do, the work we're planning on now is actually the crossings.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would require a closing, not a closing, but a single lane closure of Frederica, which will happen in the middle of the night. So we, again, ordered materials for the project and waiting on the materials to get here because we don't want that to be a delay. If we want to put out, we're going to be out there between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. on this date. We want to make sure we have everything in hand before we do that. So, but yes, we will absolutely coordinate with them if they have an evening event. We don't want to.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of volume of traffic increasing around the work zone.
Right.
And be sure we have signage and everybody's got the high vis and that sort of thing, because a lot of folks just aren't paying attention to the construction workers.
Absolutely.
So just a caution.
Good report. We need to go in executive session to discuss property. Can I have a motion for us to go in executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We'll adjourn for executive session. Can I have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned.